Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. After I agreed to the arranged marriage with Andrew Carter, news of the upcoming union between the Carter and Johnson families quickly spread throughout the entire city of Riverdale. Yet the media unanimously assumed that my fiancé was Andrew Carter, not his younger brother, Daniel Carter. In my previous life, I thought I had everything figured out. I endured years of humiliation and heartbreak, clinging to my love for Andrew, believing that if I just held on a little longer, he would eventually see my worth. But I was wrong. The day I died was seared into my memory. It was raining heavily, the kind of cold, unrelenting storm that seemed to mirror my despair. I had overheard Andrew and Anna plotting to use me one last time to secure his position as heir. The betrayal was like a knife twisting in my chest. Yet even as I confronted him, begging for an ounce of truth, he laughed in my face. His words cut deeper than any blade ever could. "You were always just a pawn, and you were never worth more than that." Blinded by heartbreak, I ran out into the storm, unsure of where I was going. I slipped on the wet pavement near the cliffs that overlooked the ocean. I remember the sensation of falling, the world blurring around me, the sound of waves roaring beneath me, and then nothing. When I woke up, I found myself in my teenage body, standing in front of my family's mansion, clutching the invitation to my engagement party with Andrew. First, I thought it was a cruel dream, but the vividness of it all and the familiar faces I hadn't seen in years told me otherwise. I was alive. I had been reborn. In that moment, I realized I had been given a second chance, not to hold on to the past, but to rewrite my future. I promised myself that this time I would no longer live for others who didn't deserve my loyalty. I would take back control of my life and ensure that those who hurt me paid for their sins. This rebirth wasn't just a blessing. It was the universe's way of giving me justice. At a cafe, I had just seen off the reporter, Dian Tang, who might have invited me. That was when Andrew and his group of friends came straight toward me. I intended to pretend not to see them. However, Andrew, who usually treated me like I didn't exist, did something completely out of character and walked directly up to me. "Emma Johnson, are you so unwanted that you had to come up with this pathetic idea of involving the media to force me into marriage?" His tone was cold, his eyes filled with disdain. "Do you think I'd ever agree to this? Don't even dream about it. I'll never marry you." His harsh words, combined with his look of utter contempt, sent a sharp pain through my chest that I couldn't control. I instinctively opened my mouth to explain I didn't, but one of his friends immediately interrupted me. Andrew wasn't that Dian Tang, the famous entertainment gossip reporter in Riverdale, sitting with her just now? Upon hearing this, Andrew became even more convinced that I had deliberately leaked the news to the media. His eyes grew cold. The loathing in his gaze was even more apparent. I blinked, suppressing the stinging in my eyes. When I opened them again, they were calm and composed. "I only asked the reporter to clarify that the engagement isn't with you, but with Daniel." As soon as the words left my mouth, I heard mocking laughter around me. Andrew's friends looked at me with ridicule and amusement. One of them smirked and said, "Emma, don't make us laugh. Everyone knows you've been infatuated with Andrew for years, practically obsessed with him. You probably even dream of marrying him. Clarifying things with a reporter? Please, you're just looking for another way to stir up rumors. But no matter what you do, Andrew will never like you." Andrew narrowed his eyes at me, his expression sharp and disdainful. "Emma Johnson, you've been lying so long it's become second nature to you. Everyone in Riverdale knows how you've been clinging to me, acting like you can't live without me. Who else would you even consider marrying? Fine, I won't expose your lies publicly. I'll let you keep pretending to be my fiancé for the sake of appearances, but don't expect anything else from me. You don't deserve it." I stared at him, stunned. In my past life, his attitude toward the arranged marriage had been cold but indifferent. He hadn't explicitly opposed it. That indifference had given me hope, and I had foolishly married him. What had changed this time? While I was lost in thought, the previously noisy cafe suddenly fell silent. I looked up in confusion and saw her, Anna Lewis, Andrew's so-called true love. She stood at the entrance, her delicate features painted with hurt and sorrow as she looked at Andrew and me. Anna slowly walked over and took off a ring from her finger. She placed it in my hand, her voice trembling. I only found out about your engagement from the news. It's not appropriate for me to keep this ring Andrew gave me anymore. Here, I'm returning it to you. Her voice faltered as she added, but the ring has both our names engraved on it. Andrew engraved it himself. I hope you don't mind, Emma. I wish you two happiness. As she spoke the last words, tears spilled from her eyes. She looked as if she couldn't bear it any longer. Turning to leave, she stumbled before she could reach the door. Andrew immediately snatched the ring from my hand, shoved me aside and rushed to her. He cradled her in his arms, his face filled with concern as he checked her condition. Anna, frail and delicate, looked up at me from his embrace, her gaze filled with triumph and provocation. Just as Andrew, now visibly anxious, prepared to take her to the hospital, Anna struggled to her feet and limped toward me. She stood in front of me with Andrew's support. Her face was filled with worry, but there was a subtle challenge in her gaze. Miss Johnson, please don't misunderstand, Anna said softly. Andrew is just concerned about me. He always has been. After all, I've been the most important person in his heart for years. But really, there's nothing between us. I hope you don't take it was the wrong way. The people around us exchanged amused glances, clearly anticipating some drama. They all knew how much I had cared about Andrew for over a decade. Anytime a woman seemed close to him, I would lose my composure, yelling and making a scene, afraid someone would take him away from me. Andrew was clearly prepared for me to erupt in anger again. He held Anna protectively in his arms, as if shielding his beloved from any potential harm I might cause. But instead, I just looked at them calmly, without doing anything undignified or embarrassing. Andrew seemed caught off guard by my lack of reaction. He released the arm he had wrapped around Anna and spoke again, his tone now tinged with frustration and embarrassment. At least you're smart enough not to hurt Anna this time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you off so easily. After saying that, he bent down, scooped Anna into his arms, and carried her out of the cafe. Just before they exited, Anna looped her arms around Andrew's neck and turned her gaze toward me. Her voice sounded sincere, but her eyes were full of smugness. Andrew, it's hard to get a cab around here. Why don't we give Miss Johnson a ride home? She suggested. Andrew stopped in his tracks. The tenderness in his eyes as he looked at Anna disappeared the moment he glanced at me. His expression turned impatient. Emma Johnson, are you deaf? Didn't you hear what Anna said? Hurry up and get in. I'll take you home, he snapped. I wanted to refuse, but seeing the malicious, gossip-hungry eyes around me, and realizing my phone was drenched in spilled coffee and wouldn't turn on, I reluctantly followed them. As a representative of the Johnson family, I couldn't afford to leave myself open to further rumors. In the parking lot, Andrew carefully placed Anna in the front passenger seat, and even fastened her seatbelt for her. As he leaned away, her lips accidentally brushed his cheek. Their eyes met, and they naturally kissed. I raised an eyebrow at the scene but said nothing, slipping into the back seat without a word. The sound of the back door closing seemed to remind Andrew of my presence. He hastily pushed Anna away and glanced at me, his expression unreadable. His hand instinctively rested near Anna, as if ready to shield her in case I lashed out. But when he saw me calmly resting my chin on my hand, entirely unbothered, his hand froze awkwardly midair. After a long moment, his face darkened, and he stomped to the driver's seat, slamming the door behind him. As the car started, Anna pointed to a small sticker on the dashboard that read, "Anna's reserved seat, no trespassing." She giggled and said in a voice just loud enough for me to hear, "Oh, Andrew, isn't this the sticker I put on your car that day as a joke? I can't believe you still have it. Won't it make Miss Johnson misunderstand? I should take it off." She reached toward the sticker, but made no actual move to remove it. Instead, she looked back at me, her eyes glinting with provocation. In the past, I might have taken the bait. It had been deeply upsetting, but now I found her antics childish and ridiculous, utterly boring. Andrew glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his expression difficult to read. He suddenly raised his voice. "Take it off. No way, the front seat is yours. Anna always has been. No one else should even think about sitting there." When we arrived at my apartment complex, Andrew parked the car and got out with me. I glanced at him, following me, puzzled but unwilling to ask about his intentions. I turned to head inside without a word. Seeing me about to leave, Andrew suddenly reached out and grabbed my arm. I looked at him as he held a brooch in his hand and forcefully stuffed it into mine. His tone carried a hint of disdain and contempt. "Take this, accept my gift, and stop causing trouble. I'm allowing you to carry the title of my fiancé in public, but you need to know your place. Don't ever upset Anna or make her uncomfortable. And don't think that pretending to be indifferent like today will catch my attention. My heart will always belong to Anna. Don't harbor any delusions." After finishing his speech, Andrew turned and walked away. I glanced down at the brooch he had shoved into my hand and couldn't help but find it amusing. I recognized this brooch. It was a custom gift that came with the luxury women's watch, the same watch I had seen Anna wearing earlier today. Shaking my head, I casually tossed the brooch into the trash by the door and went home. After washing up, I lay in bed unable to fall asleep. In my previous life, by this time, Anna had already left the country, yet in this life, she was still here with no sign of leaving. What had changed? Could Anna also have been reborn like me? As these thoughts swirled in my head, I eventually drifted off to sleep, dreaming about my past life. Back then, I had chosen to proceed with the engagement to Andrew to ensure the smooth alliance between the two families. Andrew's father secretly arranged a meeting with Anna, offering her $5 million to leave the country. Anna accepted the money and left, but before she departed, she deliberately spread rumors, making Andrew believe that I had forced her out so I could marry him. In retaliation, Andrew married me only to continually raise my hopes and crush them. The next morning, I stepped out of my room and found my parents chatting in the living room. My mother mentioned that Andrew's older brother Christopher would be returning today, and tonight's banquet would not only welcome him home, but also serve as our engagement party. I nodded, but my palms clenched tightly. In my past life, Christopher had also returned on this very day, but his private jet had tragically crashed, resulting in his untimely death. This time, I had already warned him not to take the private jet, so the tragedy should be averted. Even so, I couldn't shake the unease in my heart. To calm myself, I decided to drive to the seaside villa. The villa housed the rose garden I had cultivated since childhood. Standing amidst the roses, I always brought me peace. I had originally created the rose garden because Andrew once mentioned that roses were his favorite flower. For him, I had collected various rose seeds and planted them in the garden. Over the past decade, the garden had grown into a beautiful, flourishing oasis. But as I drove into the villa, I was shocked to find the entire rose garden destroyed. Only a few roses in the corners remained untouched. My brows furrowed as I surveyed the scene of destruction. I took out my phone to call the police, but before I could dial, I heard Andrew and Anna's voices in the distance. Striding quickly toward the sound, I found Andrew sitting on a swing entwined with roses. Anna leaned intimately against him, her laughter bright and carefree. Fury surged through me as I clenched my fists and forcibly stopped the swing, glaring at them. I demanded, "Who gave you permission to be here? And who told you it was okay to destroy my rose garden?" Andrew's cheerful expression instantly shifted to one of pitiful innocence. "Miss Johnson, it's my fault. I told Andrew I liked rose swings, so he brought me here and made one for me himself. His hands were even injured by the thorns while he was building it. You're angry? Blame me. Please don't blame Andrew." Andrew immediately shielded Anna behind him and looked at me with a mixture of impatience and disdain. "Emma Johnson, are you done? It's just a few roses. Do you have to be so petty?" I was so furious at Andrew and Anna that my chest heaved with anger. These two had destroyed the rose garden I had cultivated for years, and still had the audacity to call me petty. Andrew's voice was dripping with disdain as he added, "And who doesn't know this garden was originally planted for me? I only used a few roses. Why are you so angry? Are you jealous because I made a swing for Anna? What right do you have to be jealous of her?" His mocking gaze swept over me as if I were insignificant. "Stop making a fuss. Once Anna's done using the swing, consider it a gift. I made it myself." I was nearly blinded by rage at his shamelessness. 1,000 retorts clogged my throat. but my upbringing restrained me from saying anything unbecoming. Beside him, Anna interjected with a soft, seemingly innocent tone. Miss Johnson, I'm just about finished with it anyway. Consider the swing and the rose is yours. Again, she got off the swing as she spoke, but in a seemingly accidental motion. She loosened the knot securing the swing to the frame. As soon as she stepped away, she gave me a slight push toward it. Without the knot holding it in place, the swing collapsed suddenly, its wooden pieces crashing down toward me. Andrew instinctively pulled Anna into his arms, shielding her protectively. Meanwhile, a heavy plank struck my shin, sending me tumbling painfully to the ground. For a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of concern flash across Andrew's face as he glanced at my injury. He was about to step toward me, but Anna grabbed his arm, her voice trembling with vain guilt. Miss Johnson, I said I'd give the swing and the roses back to you. How could you deliberately break the swing and hurt yourself just to frame me? Andrew made that swing with his own hands. How could you be so heartless? The sharp pain clouded my mind, leaving me momentarily disoriented. My face was pale and cold, sweat trickled down my forehead. I couldn't hear most of what they were saying. Struggling to focus, I instinctively reached out to Andrew and pleaded, "Help me." But instead of helping, Andrew stepped on my outstretched hand, pinning it to the ground with anger blazing in his eyes. Emma Johnson, are you that desperate to marry me? So desperate that you'd hurt yourself to frame me? You leave me no choice but to teach you a lesson today, he spat venomously. He picked up another piece of the broken swing and slammed it onto my waist with deliberate force. Then he crushed my phone under his foot, his voice sharp and commanding. Kneel before Anna and apologize. You don't get to stand until she forgives you. When I didn't respond immediately, his anger flared even further. He kicked me hard, his tone menacing. Emma Johnson, don't forget that tonight is supposed to be our engagement party, but it doesn't have to be. With one word, I can cancel it now. Kneel like a dog and beg for Anna's forgiveness, or there will be no groom at tonight's party. Fighting through the searing pain, I looked up at them, my voice steady and deliberate as I said, I told you I'm not marrying you and I will never apologize to her. My words startled Andrew. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. But before he could speak, his phone chimed with a message. After reading it, the hesitation in his expression vanished, replaced by smug arrogance. Emma Johnson, you almost fooled me. You say you don't want to marry me, yet you ordered Manchester roses for tonight. Everyone knows those are my favorite. Still want to deny that you're trying to win me over. I wanted to explain that the roses were for Christopher, who also loved Manchester roses, but Andrew didn't give me a chance to speak. His eyes filled with disgust as he said, I'll take Anna to the party first since you refused to kneel and apologize here. You can do it at the party in front of everyone. If you don't kneel, there will be no groom at this engagement. He turned to leave with Anna, adding coldly, Anna and I, along with the guests, will be waiting for you at the engagement party. After finishing his words, Andrew turned and left with Anna in his arms. The searing pain in my lower back was nearly unbearable, but watching them disappear from my sight filled me with an even deeper sense of despair. Who would save me? The excruciating pain finally overwhelmed me, and I passed out. What I didn't see was a tall, slender man stepping out from the shadows. After glancing at my unconscious form, he gently picked me up and carried me away. When I woke up again, the first thing I noticed was the sharp scent of disinfectant filling the air. I was lying in a hospital room, testing my body cautiously. Usually, I tried to move, but the pain stopped me in my tracks, and I couldn't help but cry out softly. Don't move, your injuries aren't healed yet, a deep magnetic voice advised. Startled, I realized there was someone else in the room. Turning toward the voice, I saw a man with features bearing a striking resemblance to Andrew. I immediately recognized him as Christopher Carter, Andrew's older brother. Relief washed over me at the sight of him, and the nervous tension in my chest eased. I gave him a broad smile and said, You made it back safely. Christopher raised an eyebrow at my words, and a hint of warmth appeared in his gaze. Was the anonymous message from you? I nodded. How did you know someone tampered with my private jet, and why did you decide to help me? His tone carried curiosity but no malice, only genuine intrigue and gratitude. Meeting his calm gaze, I decided to answer honestly. Would you believe me if I told you I dreamed about it last night? As for why I wanted to save you, it's simple. You're my fiancé. He froze for a moment, clearly caught off guard, but then he nodded. I believe you. His unexpected response surprised me. Realizing that he had been the one to rescue me, I looked at him with both gratitude and a hint of confusion. Thank you for saving me, but why were you there in the first place? He explained. After receiving your message, I was skeptical at first, but I'm not someone who takes unnecessary risks, so I had the jet thoroughly inspected. It turned out that someone really had tampered with the engine. Naturally, I became suspicious of the person who sent the warning, you. I had someone investigate you. Sorry, his gaze flickered toward me, watching for any sign of anger or hostility. When I didn't react negatively, he continued. At first, I just wanted to meet the person who sent the message, but when I found you, you were injured and unconscious, so I brought you to the hospital. I looked at him, my curiosity piqued. Why didn't you suspect me? Instinct, he replied with a faint smile. I trust that my fiancé isn't a bad person. We exchanged a small mutual smile, and for the first time, I felt a genuine sense of admiration for Christopher. He was so different from Andrew. Honest, humble, and kind. In stark contrast, Andrew was arrogant and selfish. After being discharged from the hospital, Christopher and I returned to the Carter family estate. That evening, the Carters and the Johnsons were hosting a small banquet together. The entrance was bustling with guests coming and going, and Andrew stood at the door of the banquet hall, welcoming attendees. When Christopher and I appeared arm in arm at the entrance, Andrew's face drained of color, and he stared at us as if he had seen a ghost. Shocked, he stammered. Big brother, how are you here? Are you a G-ghost? His reaction made both Christopher and me instinctively look up at him. Andrew's eyes were filled with genuine fear and disbelief. In that instant, something clicked in my mind. I realized Andrew had also been reborn. Explained everything. Why Anna had stayed in the country instead of leaving. Why Andrew had been so desperate to protect her, and why he seemed so wary of me. As Andrew's accusing gaze darted toward Christopher, I could tell he suspected that Christopher had orchestrated the sabotage of his jet. Such suspicions weren't far-fetched in wealthy families like the Carters, where rivalry among siblings was commonplace. I couldn't entirely blame Andrew for his mistrust. After all, in his previous life, he had been reborn and yet remained indifferent to Christopher's impending plane crash, letting him die without lifting a finger to prevent it. Most people wouldn't have been capable of such cruelty, but Andrew had proven himself to be an exception. Though I was already familiar with Andrew's selfish and malicious nature, he always managed to surpass my expectations, revealing new depths to his depravity. After entering the banquet, Christopher excused himself and went to the study. I assumed he was investigating the reason behind the malfunction on his private jet, so I didn't think much of it. I waited in the lounge while the makeup artist finished doing my makeup. Suddenly, Andrew barged in without warning, shoving the makeup artist out of the room. He grabbed my wrist roughly, his eyes blazing with anger. Emma Johnson, I'm warning you, stay away from Anna. If you hurt her again, I won't just come after you. I'll destroy the Johnson family too. The intertwined hatred from both my past and current lives boiled over, and I yanked my wrist free with all the strength I could muster. Without thinking, I slapped him hard across the face. Who gave you permission to enter? Get out. A red handprint appeared on Andrew's cheek as he glared at me with barely restrained rage. He raised his hand as if to strike me back, but hesitated under the full force of my furious glare. His hand dropped, and his voice softened, though it still carried a condescending edge. I know you're only doing all this because you like me. You're desperate to marry me. As long as you promise not to harm Anna anymore, I'll let today's engagement happen without holding it against you. But after we're engaged, remember your place. You'll be my fiancé in name only, achieved through underhanded means. Don't ever cross Anna again, he continued with an air of self-righteousness. Even if my father forces me to marry you one day, my heart will always belong to Anna. Once we're married, I'll bring Anna home, and you'll help cover for her. You'll praise her in front of my father, and convince him to accept her as soon as possible. Do you understand? As if granting me a tremendous favor, he added, "If you can do all this, I might occasionally come home so you can have my child, but don't expect anything more. My heart will only ever belong to Anna. The Carter family fortune will go to my and Anna's children, not yours. But if you behave well, I'll consider letting your family invest in Carter Industries. After all, I know the future trends of the market and industries over the next few decades." Listening to his absurd arrogance, I couldn't help but sneer internally. Andrew truly believed his rebirth had given him omniscience over the future. Did he not realize that the world was ever-changing? Even the flutter of a butterfly's wings could create a hurricane. He actually thought he could replicate his past life's trajectory. I was eager to see how his blind arrogance would backfire. After his self-important monologue, Andrew strode out of the lounge. Watching him leave, I couldn't suppress a cold smile from curling on my lips. Shortly afterward, Christopher approached me with a stack of documents in hand. At some point, he had changed into a tailored white suit that perfectly outlined his tall, elegant figure. He looked like a prince straight out of a fairy tale. When he reached out his hand toward me, I instinctively placed mine in his, allowing him to escort me to the banquet hall. Andrew, who was still lost in his self-made fantasy, turned to look at us as we entered together. His expression darkened, his gaze filled with simmering anger. Still, he maintained his composure in front of the crowd, pulling out the chair beside him and gesturing for me to sit. His eyes were filled with smug arrogance, as if certain I would gratefully take the seat he offered. Instead, I didn't even glance at him. I walked past him and sat in the chair Christopher had pulled out for me. Andrew's face twisted with suppressed fury as he shot me a warning look. Lowering his head, he quickly typed something on his phone. Moments later, my phone buzzed with a notification. I opened it to see a message from Andrew. "Emma Johnson, stop playing these little games to get my attention. I'm not falling for it. This is your final warning. Don't do anything unnecessary, or this engagement will be cancelled on the spot. You won't even have the title of my fiancé left." Amused by his delusions, I blocked him without a second thought and set my phone down. When Christopher noticed my slight action, he asked gently, "Is everything okay?" Smiling faintly, I replied, "It's nothing, just an irrelevant person I've already dealt with." Satisfied, Christopher nodded and began placing food on my plate. He waited until I took a bite before saying, "If anything comes up that you can't handle, let me know. It's my responsibility as your fiancé to take care of any trouble for you." Looking at Christopher's composed and sincere expression, my heart skipped a beat and my ears grew warm. He truly was an exceptional person, and soon he would officially become my fiancé. I lowered my head and gave Christopher a knowing smile. Our interaction only deepened the fury in Andrew's eyes. He picked up his phone again to send me another message, only to discover that I had blocked him. Seeing the red exclamation mark on his screen, Andrew's rage reached its boiling point, clouding his judgment. At that moment, Anna, disguised as a server, sneaked into the banquet hall. Andrew immediately pulled her to his side, his abrupt action drawing the attention of everyone around them. Anna, flustered by his gesture, lowered her head in apparent shyness. The crowd, filled with shrewd onlookers, quickly pieced together what was happening. Their gazes toward Andrew and Anna were laced with disdain. To openly bring a mistress to a formal family banquet showed a blatant disregard for the Carter family's reputation. Compared to his older brother, Andrew was seen as immature and irresponsible, oblivious to the scornful stares directed at him. Consumed by anger, Andrew sent another message. "Blocking me on WeChat? You've got some nerve. Just wait, I'm going to announce in front of everyone that I will never marry you. The only woman I'll ever marry is Anna, even if it means giving up my place as the Carter family heir. That will never change." I coldly watched Andrew's tantrum, then decisively blocked his phone number. His fury deepened as he realized what I had done. Shortly after, Mr. Carter, the family patriarch, took the stage to deliver a brief welcome speech. He then publicly announced the union between the Carter and Johnson families. Andrew, not missing a beat, stormed onto the stage, dragging Anna with him. Holding her hand high, he declared, "Anna Lewis is my one true love. I'll never marry anyone but her. If I'm forced into an arranged marriage with Emma Johnson, I'd rather sever ties with the Carter family than compromise." His eyes sparkled with vindictive glee while Anna, nestled in his arms, wore a soft triumphant smile. They both looked at me, expecting to see heartbreak and despair on my face. Unfortunately for them, I remained completely unfazed, my expression unreadable. Andrew's satisfaction began to falter, confusion creeping into his features. He couldn't understand why someone who had loved him for over a decade would react so indifferently to his public rejection. Even the audience didn't react as he had hoped. Instead of admiring his supposed unwavering love for Anna, their gazes were filled with disdain, seeing him as nothing more than a clown making a fool of himself. The only person truly enraged was Mr. Carter. With the Carter family business facing a critical juncture, the alliance with the Johnson family was crucial. Any disruption could spell disaster. Watching his second son make a spectacle of himself and tarnish the family name, especially compared to the capable and composed Christopher, was the final straw. Mr. Carter's brows furrowed tightly. Closing his eyes for a brief moment, he opened them again with resolute determination. He stepped onto the stage, completely ignoring Anna, whom Andrew was shielding protectively. Taking the microphone, his voice carried the weight of finality. "Welcome everyone to the engagement banquet between the Carter and Johnson families. Before the ceremony begins, I have two important announcements to make. First, the person engaged to Miss Emma Johnson has always been my eldest son, Christopher Carter. Second, the future heir of the Carter family will also remain." Christopher Carter, pausing briefly, turned his sharp gaze to Andrew. His tone was cold and unforgiving. "Since Andrew wishes to renounce his ties to the Carter family in pursuit of his so-called true love, I hereby declare that from this moment onward, Andrew Carter is no longer a member of this family. He is free to chart his own path." Andrew's smug expression vanished instantly, replaced by sheer disbelief. His face drained of color as he stared at his father, unable to process what had just happened. Anna's face turned pale as she darted a glance at Andrew, then at Christopher beside me, and finally settled her gaze on me. Her eyes were filled with reluctance and unwillingness to accept defeat. To prevent Andrew from causing any more trouble at the banquet, Mr. Carter had both him and Anna thrown out. Even as they were dragged out, Andrew remained in a state of shock. He couldn't comprehend how everything had changed so drastically. In his previous life, he had been the uncontested heir of the Carter family, but now, with his brother's return, everything had shifted. His former fiancé was now engaged to Christopher, and he had lost his position as heir. Inside the banquet hall, the celebration continued, unaffected by Andrew's disgraceful exit. Guests came forward to congratulate Christopher and me, offering us their blessings and gifts. Outside, Andrew stood, his eyes filled with rage and a deep-seated sense of injustice. His anger festered, and resentment grew toward both the Johnson and Carter families. "This should have been my engagement," he thought bitterly. "Even if I didn't want her, Emma should have been mine for life." Andrew's hatred for everyone involved solidified as he glared at our engagement ceremony. Meanwhile, he completely failed to notice Anna's increasingly distant attitude. Her gaze was filled with adoration, but it wasn't directed at Andrew. It was aimed squarely at Christopher. Following our engagement, the Johnson and Carter families began a deep partnership. The alliance brought mutual trust and cooperation, allowing both families to weather economic challenges and rise to the top as the leading enterprises in Riverdale. As for Christopher and me, our relationship grew stronger over time. While Christopher focused on his work, I didn't idle either. My guard against Andrew remained high. I knew he wouldn't accept defeat so easily and would eventually try to strike back. However, I wasn't afraid. He had his memories of the past, but so did I, plus the advantage of living many more years than he had in our previous lives. I decided to take the offensive, cutting off any chance he had to rebuild his influence. One day, I learned about a large anonymous investment in a bid to develop a remote barren mountain. I couldn't help but smile, knowing Andrew was behind it. He had pinned all his hopes on this project. The barren mountain may have seemed insignificant now, but both of us knew its future potential. It would become the economic center of the region, with land valued at astronomical prices. I deliberately arranged for someone to compete with him during the bidding process, driving the price higher and higher. Just as the cost was about to exceed Andrew's financial limits, I ordered the bidding to stop. Predictably, Andrew refused to let go of the opportunity, pouring every available resource into securing the land. He succeeded, but just as he prepared to begin development, I sent an anonymous letter to the National Archaeological Team, informing them of an imperial tomb buried beneath the mountain. In our past lives, my life was cut short by his hands, but my soul lingered, tethered to the world by unfulfilled regrets and an unyielding sense of injustice. I watched as events unfolded long after my death. Andrew's financial ruin, his desperate attempts to regain power, and finally his downfall. When the tomb beneath the barren mountain was discovered, the government was thrown into chaos, torn between salvaging the massive investments poured into the project or preserving the ancient tomb, an invaluable historical treasure. The indecision caused public outrage, leaving Andrew's legacy in shambles. My lingering soul bore witness to it all, a silent observer to the consequences of his arrogance and greed. This time, I acted before Andrew could break ground, ensuring the tomb's existence became public knowledge. The news immediately halted all development. The archaeological team descended on the site, making it their base of operations. Andrew's plans crumbled, and he was left staring helplessly at the bright red tape fencing off the mountain, his bloodshot eyes fixed on the archaeologists who had taken over. As long as the excavation continued, no development could proceed. Investors abandoned the area in droves, leaving Andrew's dreams and his finances in ruins. His gamble had failed spectacularly. Andrew lost everything. After failing to repay a significant amount of debt, Andrew's name was added to the bank's blacklist. He was labeled a defaulter, unable to book flights or high-speed trains, effectively reducing him to a state of social and financial ruin. Once Andrew was penniless, the first person to abandon him was Anna. She took the last bit of money he had, feigning pity and helplessness as she tried to approach Christopher for sympathy. But Christopher wasn't his brother. He saw through Anna's manipulative tactics immediately and sent her back to Andrew without hesitation. Consumed by anger and despair, Andrew's mind broke. In a fit of rage, he killed Anna, strangling her to death before dismembering her body and disposing of the pieces in a sewer. When Anna's remains were discovered, Andrew had already fled, leaving no trace of his whereabouts. I had a lingering feeling that Andrew would come back for me. With that in mind, I reported my concerns to the police, who stayed nearby, ready to act at a moment's notice. Sure enough, Andrew eventually resurfaced. As soon as he appeared, the police apprehended him. His bloodshot eyes stared into mine. He was dragged away. He apologized profusely, tears streaming down his face, and said, "I was blind. I loved the wrong person. I've wronged you. Please, Emma, forgive me. Give me one more chance and I'll treat you well, I swear. The person I truly love is you." I simply looked at him, my expression cold and unchanging. There wasn't a trace of emotion on my face, just as he had looked at me countless times in our past life. The moment he saw my indifferent expression, his struggles ceased, his body stiffened, and I knew he had realized the truth. I was also reborn with that knowledge. He stopped begging for forgiveness, understanding there was no chance I would ever pardon him. In his final act of desperation, Andrew pulled a box cutter from his clothing and slashed his own throat. Blood poured down his chest as he collapsed heavily to the ground. With his dying breath, he muttered to himself, "I'll do it right next time. Next time I'll make the right choices." I stared at his lifeless body, his eyes still wide open, and thought to myself, there won't be a next time. This was your only chance. And as for me, I've already used up all the luck I had in this lifetime. There won't be another rebirth. Turning my gaze to Christopher, who was waiting for me in the distance, I felt a sense of peace. In this life, I've already achieved everything I wanted. There's nothing left to regret.